Jeremy Corbyn currently dealing with a few questions at the end of this campaign launch. I can see one of them references the fact that he has the lowest personal poll rating since 1977. We'll keep an eye on that for you. But taking them in a chunk and then answering them in a chunk as well. We'll pick over the highlights of that if there are any. Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor, is here. This is one of the oddest elections that we will ever cover, isn't it? In the sense of what is actually being argued about and argued over, and this ludicrous, distorting shadow that Brexit casts over everything. But Jeremy Corbyn is probably at his best on the stump. He is a campaigner.
He's always been a campaigner.
Yeah.
He's always been a campaigner, and he's always relished campaigning. But Jeremy Corbyn's history in politics is campaigning. That's his background. He hasn't come from, and this is just I'm just saying this as an observation. He hasn't come from having worked as a special advisor. He hasn't come from having a career outside of politics. He has come from political activism, as many from his wing of the Labour Party have come from. Now, he talked about in this, and I've got four themes. First, you talked about the NHS being so important. Jeremy Corbyn again making the link between Brexit and the NHS, the Trump-style Brexit, selling off the NHS, and that brought our first chant of the campaign, "Not for sale." The crowd shouting in response.
What do you
to
think
Jeremy
of that?
Corbyn.
Because, I mean, the obvious parallel is with lock her up or something like
Yes.
that. But one is built on a lie and one is built on a very powerful political pledge that they could be equally effective in the...
They can be, but it's about humanising, it's about trying to draw people in, it's about creating an environment where people take part, rather than simply standing in front of a podium, giving a speech and polite clapping, thank you very much, well done. It's about trying to, it's the optics of it. Well, it's not in the optics because we're not looking at it, we're hearing the chanting, but it's about the engagement in politics of people. And that's what Jeremy Corbyn wants to do. He wants to run a popular campaign. The other interesting line, going after the Lib Dems with the revocation of Article 50, that's going to be an absolute fascinating battle. Labour versus the Liberal Democrats, people's vote, second referendum versus the revocation being proposed, of Article 50 being proposed by the Liberal Democrat leader Jo Swinson. And Jeremy Corbyn saying it's undemocratic, very much similar language to what Boris Johnson and Theresa May
they're
have
both
used in the
threatened
past.
by the Lib Dems in a way, aren't they?
Yes.
Because your Remain voting loyalists to the Conservatives or the Labour Party might be tempted into the Liberal Democrats' rather more robust offer.
And the other thing about the Liberal Democrats, their threat to the Conservative Party is, and this was what David Lidington's been saying, the former de facto Deputy Prime Minister under Theresa May, Nicky Morgan, that if the Tories become the Brexit Party, they become much more narrow in their ideology, then that creates room in the centre for the Liberal Democrats. And of course, Labour will be trying to, of course, you hear the personal attacks Boris Johnson has been making on Jeremy Corbyn, trying to make sure that none of those voters who might be tempted by the Liberal Democrats could also be tempted by Jeremy Corbyn. And that's why it will become this campaign from the Conservative point of view is also going to focus on Jeremy Corbyn and his credentials as Prime Minister. Boris Johnson saying yesterday that he would ruin the economy. In London, there's going to be a real focus on Jeremy Corbyn and Labour's, as the Conservatives see it, their economic record. And then finally, Jeremy Corbyn, I thought it was very interesting, trying to apply his speech to real people's lives, trying to come across as somebody who understands the concerns of people, where he talks about boarded up shops, the closed library, the swimming pool, the youth centres that have closed doors, and the high street that is like a ghost town. He goes on to say the elderly couple who are scared to walk down the road because violent crime has doubled. And if you look at his slogan, it's time for real change. This speaks to the trust issues that the Labour campaign is going to focus on when it comes to Boris Johnson. You want change, fine. They're offering change, but we're offering real change, as in what Boris Johnson over there is selling you isn't real, it's made up, and it's a figment of the Conservative imagination, trying to give that authenticity to the Labour campaign.
With the nurse wins, the pensioner wins, the
Exactly.
student wins, the office worker wins, the engineer wins.